Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. For the rest of this month, I'm going to be doing mix-up stories. Could be demons, could be Bigfoot. Varies from story to story. And happy Halloween. Let's get into it. Story 1. Skinwalker. This all happened about 5 years ago. One night, a few of my friends decided after a night of hanging out that we'd go on an adventure at about 3 a.m. We took a ride about 50 miles to this old Spanish ruin in New Mexico that was once the seat of the Inquisition. I can't for the life of me remember what the place is called. So we jumped the front gate to the place and started exploring. One of my friends brought a flute with him and he started playing it. And about 30 seconds into his mediocre playing, something started screaming really, really loud on the tops of the long destroyed walls of the place. It was going from wall to wall really quick, screaming the most blood-curdling scream you've ever imagined. We noped the heck out of there. One of my friends pissed his pants and drove a few hours to Bandelier National Monument, where we planned to camp out for the rest of the weekend. We got to Bandelier at probably like 6 or 7 a.m. and set up our camp. After a few hours just talking about what the hell happened at the ruins, I went to take a piss behind a probably 300 feet from our camp. This is where everything starts getting a little fuzzy. I remember seeing two dust devils coming my way, and when I turned around again, two of my friends were there, and they were motioning for me to follow them. I couldn't help but follow them, like I was being pulled behind them in shackles. I followed them for what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I snapped out of it. These weren't my friends. They had bright red hair, with my friends' faces and cat eyes. Both of these friends were brunette. I stopped walking, and they looked at me with probably the most terrifying gaze I've ever seen. Monsters in movies are nothing compared to this. I turned around and ran as fast as I could back the way I came from. After like 5 minutes of a full sprint, I got back to that rock I took a piss at, and I found our camp. Everyone was still there, still sitting and talking, and didn't even notice that I was gone. I told them what happened with the look-alike skinwalkers. We packed up everything and left probably within like 10 minutes and got the hell back to Albuquerque. Story 2. Bigfoot. My name is Tracy. I lived in a border town on the Nevada-Utah line called Wendover. Maybe you've heard of the Bonneville Salt Flats. I have lived here for over 14 years and enjoy going out into the hills and finding old homesteads. I've seen most of the critters that live in this area, but I watched something I've never seen before. I've asked people I know here if anyone ever reported a Bigfoot before. All I got was a bunch of joking, so I thought I would ask someone else. I was about 43 miles south of town off of Highway Alternate 93 and up in the tree line looking for arrowheads when I saw it. Well, it was about 300 yards uphill from me, about 5 feet tall, brown, and walked upright, and it walked up a grade that took me a good 10 minutes to get up, and this thing did it like it was nothing. But I did not smell anything that I've read about and did not find one single footprint. So what I'm asking is, anyone ever had sightings in this area? If so, I would like to know, and I'll always bring a camera from now on. The terrain where I was is at a lower level of the mountain is mostly scrub oak, and up higher a mix of scrub oak, pines, lots of bushes, and two small streams. Very hilly opening of a big valley. The locals call it Twin Spring. There are many arrowheads in the area because the Indians lived there a very long time. As for what I saw, it was about 5 feet, reddish brown hair. Its arms were very long. Its hands were below its knees. It took very long strides when it walked. The thing did not have much of a neck. It was like its head sat right on top of its shoulders. I did not get a good look at its face. Its arms swung wide back and forth, and it looked like its hands were very big. I'm going back today, 10/01/2006, and going to stay for a few days. I'm going to hike the area and go up higher. Hope this thing is not mean. Before I move on to the next story, I would like to point out that a majority of my viewers aren't subscribed. If you can just take a moment and hit that subscribe button, maybe click like or leave a comment, it'll go a long way in helping me fight the algorithm. You can always take it back later, and it's totally free. Now, back to the stories. Story 3. Duende. I was born and raised in the Philippines. We moved to the U.S. when I was 11 years old. This story took place in the Philippines when I was 7. I can recall some of the stuff that happened to me, but not to the fullest. My uncle retold the story again to me later on when I got a little older, and then from time to time, when we have family gatherings, someone in my family would retell the story again, as it was a bit mind-boggling. The story started when my dad and I went to visit his sister, my aunt, and my cousins in the province. My aunt has 3 children. One is my age, and the other 2 are a couple of years older than I was. When we got to their house, I remember my aunt and cousins came running out to the house to greet us with such joy and excitement. After the initial visiting, my cousins and I went outside to play hide and seek. My older cousin was the seeker while everyone else hid. My aunt's house was out in the woods. Her house was surrounded by mountains and trees after trees and tall grasses. There's this belief in the Philippines that most duendes, dwarfs, live in the forest or a place where there's lots of trees, and if you cross their path without saying tabi tabi ponuno, meaning pardon or excuse me little people, they will cast you a bad spell. It all depends on the duende you come across. Some are nice and some are evil. If you cross an evil duende, he or she can cast a death wish on you. Some can give you warts all over your body and make you ugly and hideous, so people will be disgusted of you and don't want to be around you. Back to playing hide and seek. My cousin was the seeker and everyone hid. I wanted to hide where my cousin couldn't find me, so I saw this very big tree, what seemed to be like 100-year-old tree. Around it I found a little hole, and that's where I hid. Without thinking and forgetting what my elders told me about duendes, I forgot to say what we're supposed to say and hid a long time in the tree. After what seemed to be forever hiding, I came out of the hole and went back to where my cousins were. They said that they gave up looking for me since they didn't find me anywhere. That evening before dinner, I started not feeling too good. I remember the shivers, the many trips to the bathroom, vomiting, and after that I can honestly say that I don't remember what else happened, but my dad and aunt told me that I was practically in a coma for 3 days. They said that in some cases I was hallucinating. I would sweat heavily, laughed, cried, and sometimes I talked to someone in front of me as if someone was there, but there was no one there. They even took me to a local hospital, but the doctors couldn't tell my family what was wrong with me. So my aunt asked her kids what we did outside. My cousins told my dad and my aunt that all we did was played hide and seek. They said that I was gone a long time and they couldn't find where I hid. My dad and aunt then knew that maybe I was a victim of an evil duende. They took me to an albulario, a witch doctor, to find out what was wrong with me. As my dad explained to me, he said that as soon as they brought me inside the witch doctor's house, the witch doctor knew that I was being played or something evil was in my presence. The witch doctor lit a candle, took a tub, and poured about an inch or 2 of water in it. Then she mixed a few drops of some special oil that comes from a plant with the water. While chanting in some weird language, she took the lit candle and poured the melted wax in the tub of water and oil. As she poured the wax, a figure started to form. My uncle said that the melted wax on the water formed a huge tree with the hole. Inside the hole was a human, which was supposed to be me, and around me was about 4 or 5 duendes. Some were just standing there staring at me, and some looked like they were throwing something at me. So the witch doctor had advised my family to take me back where that big tree was and to say tabi tabi ponuno and bring some fruits for offerings. That same day, my dad and aunt took me to the tree and excused me from any wrongdoings and brought with them plenty of fruits. All I remember was waking up the next day without any recollection of what had happened to me. Story 4. Creeper. As some have noticed, crazy things seem to surround me, mostly at my best friend's old house. This story took place when I was 17. I was spending the night with my friend and had no time to shower before leaving my own house, so I decided to take one at my friend's. It was already night by the time I got to her house. I said once before I had always had a bad feeling of dread anywhere in her house, especially in the bathroom. Now my friend Anna had a glass shower door. You could see perfectly through it and anywhere in the bathroom. I never shut the bathroom door because it had a habit of getting stuck only on me and would not open until Anna would force it open. Mind you, there was nothing wrong with this door. I was showering with the door open that night so it wouldn't get stuck. Anna was sitting in the living room watching TV. The living room is on the other side of the bathroom wall. There is no way to see it from the bathroom and vice versa. When I turned around to face the bathroom door, I saw someone standing in the doorway, something dressed in black. It appeared to be peeking around the corner, so thinking Anna was playing a trick on me, I immediately asked, "Anna, are you standing in the doorway?" She replied, "No, I'm sitting in the living room still." By the sound of her voice, I could tell she still was. I freaked, opened the door to the shower, and saw it. This thing was almost wrapped around the side of the wall, with its head twisted around and pressed against the wall. It was like it had turned its head completely upside down, but was standing. It stayed there for a moment, just staring and twisted until I yelled for Anna. I yelled frantically for her to get in the bathroom. By the time she got there, it was gone. I didn't see where it went, just sort of disappeared like it was never there. When Anna got to the bathroom, she looked everywhere for something that may have given off some sort of reflection, but nothing found. I finished showering rather quick and made Anna stay in the doorway until I was done. Also, the front and back door were visible to where Anna was sitting in the living room, so no one was able to sneak past her and into the or out of the house without being seen. We tried numerous times to duplicate the contortion of the image I had seen, but were unable to. We're not sure what or who was it even to this day, and haven't seen anything like it since. I'm now very leery about showering at other people's houses. Story 5. For many of the people who come from Mexico, you know that Mexico is just filled with ghost stories and myths. For all of you who don't know, well, now you know. There are many, many stories and myths told in the town where my parents are from. I've heard about many of them through my parents, who have heard these stories from older women who used to sit around together outside of their houses in the evening telling these supposed ghost stories. One that I heard in particular from my grandmother really caught my interest. This did not happen to me, mind you, but I would really appreciate some comments and feedback about this. My grandma said that when she was little, her mother used to tell her about these tiny little people, as in Thumbelina kind of people, that were supposedly mischievous and would always steal small personal objects in your house if you weren't careful. Now, she said they weren't harmful at all, but that they always came when you weren't looking. She blamed the loss of many objects on these little people. My grandmother, of course, wasn't one to easily believe in such things, until one day later on in life she said she happened to come across one. She said she was just sitting in her house one day. For those of you who are not familiar with a Mexican house, usually the house has a type of court or patio right in the middle where it is open so there's sun and sky coming in. And she had her eyes closed, just relaxing, when she felt a tug on her pants on one of her legs. She just ignored it and kept her eyes closed. Again, she felt a tug on her pants and she thought it was like a cat or something, and when she opened her eyes, her shoe on one of her feet was gone. Later that day, she found the shoe down where the animals were, by the big door she had leading to a big yard and the town river. Well, this happened again the next day, and she said she was determined to catch that cat. Only this time, after the second tug, she opened her eyes and said, "I got you." And to her surprise, it was a tiny little man, almost like a fairy, only without any wings or anything. He was running with her shoe, but then he dropped it. She would also tell me that sometimes when they would eat or leave dinner, they would sometimes leave tortillas on the table in a cloth, and later they wouldn't be there anymore. One time, one of my aunts saw one and ran out of the house across the street to the neighbor's house. Now, this isn't my story, but for some reason I feel like there are all types of different things we don't understand and can't explain. I was wondering if anyone else could give me information on these things, and what these little people could be, or if they even exist. The two people, my grandma and my aunt, that had these experiences at different times, my grandma having hers first, had not told anyone about it until my aunt told her story. Could it be they both saw the same thing? Story 6. Green Mass. When I was a young child, the best thing in the world was waking up early on Saturday morning for cartoons. At 6 o'clock on Saturday, the first thing that they would show was Mr. Peppermint, along with his right-hand puppet, Muffin, and after that was over, they would start showing the good stuff like He-Man and Transformers. Clearly, I was a child in the era of good cartoons before Pokemon took over the world. The child in me loves to sleep. It was no different when I was really a child, but I loved my cartoons and would wake up early without an alarm clock on Saturday to partake. One morning this ritual placed me in a strange situation, coming face to face with something in the rear bedroom of our house. Being the first person awake that morning, and being only 5 or 6 years old at the time, being stealthy was important because if Mom and Dad caught me, they would send me back to bed and I would miss some of my shows. I remember getting out of bed and creeping down the hallway to our front room where the television was located, turning on the television and finding the right channel for Mr. Peppermint to be doing his thing. I watched Mr. Peppermint and Muffin argue for a few minutes and then heard a soft noise coming from the rear of the house. I don't know why, but I went back down the hall towards my bedroom, but I did take a look farther down the hall towards an unused bedroom at the very end. I thought that I heard something moving in there. Since I did have a small dog, I thought maybe Phoenix was in there. I walked into the darkened room and to my horror saw a bright green mass with a face floating above the furniture in the room. My parents had been using this room for storage since me and my brother were at that time young enough to share a room. The mass turned towards me and had this startled expression, as if I had scared him. I assumed from the face that it was a male, but after all these years, I don't remember specifics about the face. I ran from my bedroom and got back in bed and did what all little kids do when they're terrified and pulled the covers over my head. If you pull the covers over your head, it stops any monsters from being able to touch you through the blanky force field. I stayed there for hours until I heard my parents get up, and they asked me if I had turned on the television because it was still on in the living room. This is how I know that I really did get up out of bed and was not dreaming, because I had turned on the television. I don't know what I saw that morning, but it was not mean or dangerous. It was just there, and it appeared to be a little afraid of me. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.